Sacramento doesn't have any of these, right? We don't have any toll lanes.
No, and the public probably doesn't know that they're coming, right? What is up with Grant Line Jackson, that intersection? Oh my, like that's like the worst. Whenever I use the connector or the Grant Line, that is the worst. It takes forever to get through there.
Welcome to Between Two Shovels. I'm Director Minnema, Executive Director of the Connector JPA, and I'm here with Kevin Bewsey, Executive Director of the Sacramento Transportation Authority.
I think the days of us being able to build HOV lanes are kind of going away, right? Those are very much viewed as, at least in some ways, as capacity increasing projects. And it's challenging to get grant funds for those projects, right? So if we're trying to leverage Measure A funds and get those grant funds for those projects, it's very challenging. Since Measure A started, this is the renewal, of course, started in 2009, Measure A revenues have doubled.
Wow.
Which is awesome. Construction costs have tripled. It's good and it's bad, right?
The question I got this week, what's the holdup? I'm like, oh, like we're the holdup.
Yeah.
You know, like, no.
Right.
How about you throw some money at us to see?
You know, you'd like to move a project forward, right? You've got, let's say you're in a city and your city manager's asking you, the public's asking for you. And your answer is, well, we'll have to see what we do with the grant.
Welcome to Between Two Shovels. I'm Derek Minnema, Executive Director of the Connector JPA, and I'm here with Kevin Bewsey, Executive Director of the Sacramento Transportation Authority. Thank you so much, Kevin, for coming, man.
Thanks, Derek. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, of course. And you're a civil engineer.
Yep.
Sac State grad.
Yep.
Man, I've known you for a long time, Kevin.
Yep, for sure.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Tell me, how did you get into this role of Executive Director at STA? What's kind of your career path? Started at like TY Land back in those days.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a long, I could give you a history here, but I mean, I started at the county of Sacramento as an intern.
Okay.
And luckily they hired me as an assistant civil engineer, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then I transitioned to private consulting and did that for about 10.5 years with a company called TY International. But then felt like, I think if you've been on the consulting world, right? Mark Thomas, right? So the challenge with consulting is you're doing projects everywhere, right? You're doing projects all across Northern California, all the way down to San Luis Obispo. And so I think it's you want to do projects within your own community, right?
Absolutely.
So you want to build upon like kind of almost create a legacy, but you almost want to feel like you're building momentum, right? And so I kept feeling like I was in a situation where I kept providing advice. And if I was in the other person's shoes, I could have implemented this advice, right? And done a really good job, right? So,
it's a great point, man.
Yeah.
So
that transitioned me to like Elk Grove. I was the capital program manager for like 6 years there. And that was really exciting. We did so many awesome projects. I mean, and it's not just transportation there because it was a capital program manager for public works, right? So we did an aquatic center, we did an animal shelter,
that pool, right?
We did that pool project. Yeah. Along with the connector projects, along with some trail projects, all those. So it was, I mean, this is a long way of answering the question, but
talk away, man.
It was a very cool job to have. I got to be involved with, the project from getting the grant funds through environmental, right-of-way, construction, all the way into construction. So it was cool. I think I did that for like 6 years. But, the challenge I had with the city was, they're just one of many agencies in Sacramento County, right? And I thought, I know a lot about transportation funding, right? Can I do more?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I intentionally kind of shifted over to Sacramento Transportation Authority and try to do something more countywide, right?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. So that was the exciting part about that. And
you've been there for 2 years now.
Three. We'll be 3 years in June.
Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah. So it's 3 years in June.
What are some of the things what are some of the things you are working on right now?
Yeah, I think so. Right now, we have so much going on right now. It's crazy. So, I mean, just like your agency, right?
Mm.
So we just did a contract with Fair and Pierce. We're going to do a VMT mitigation strategy.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, we're trying to, SB 743 is the change from LOS to VMT for CEQA, right? How do we address that? How do you address that? Can you address that countywide? You have to deal with that on an individual project basis, right? And so we're looking to see if we can do something more countywide, whether that's a VMT mitigation exchange or bank. And so we have a small contract with them to do some kind of workshops on the issues and to figure out if there's interest in doing something more countywide, right?
I feel like this conversation has been coming forever. Like once we started hearing about environmental mitigation habitat banks and, it was only a matter of time. Once they said that VMT was going to be like the standard for traffic mitigation,
Yeah.
VMT mitigation banks have been on the horizon. So they're coming to Sac County.
Well, I think we're going to look at it, right? I
Yeah.
think we need to take a hard look at it. I think there are opportunities to um, potentially get some funding out of some of these very large capital projects. If you look at like that YOLO 80 project,
Mhm.
I want to say that YOLO 80 managed lane project probably put like $40 million of VMT mitigation in
Really?
over like 20 years, right?
Oh, wow.
And so it's funding transit, it's funding active transportation projects. And so with SACOG really looking at expansion of their toll lane network within Sacramento County, most of those toll lanes are in Sacramento County. So is there a way to address this VMT mitigation for those projects and then put more funding in to active transportation projects? That's where the interest is, I think, on my board along those same corridors. So it's another way of us, STA, trying to take some potential funding sources and provide funding to local agencies to deliver projects.
Tell me more about these managed lanes because I've know very little about them.
Yeah, so I think generally, I mean, Sacramento Council of Governments, SACOG, they're really looking at, I would say in some ways modernizing, our existing freeways and highways, right?
Sure.
And so, STA is probably since over the last 35 years, we put a lot of our Measure A funds into building out the HOV lane network.
Yes.
So if you look at the US 50 projects currently in construction, that'll close that gap in the HOV lane network. Also that I-5 managed lanes, there's an I-5 project that was completed about a year ago, which is from downtown Sacramento to Elk Grove, that completed the HOV lane network. But I think the days of us being able to build HOV lanes are kind of going away, right? Those are very much viewed as, at least in some ways, as capacity increasing projects.
Really?
And it's challenging to get grant funds for those projects, right? So if we're trying to leverage Measure A funds and get those grant funds for those projects, is very challenging. So if we want to build any new roadways on the freeway, right, to address congestion, we're going to have to look at specifically these express lanes or these toll lanes, right? It's the only way it's going to happen.
And that's over in the Bay Area, right?
They're already in the Bay Area.
680.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we have that one on YOLO. They have the YOLO 80 project between Davis and West Sacramento. That's in construction now. It'll probably be finished in 2027, 2028.
Yeah.
So, that is basically, we're looking at, it's there possibilities to do some of that work here within Sacramento. But we're going to be doing that with SACOG, right? Because they have a regional plan.
Sure.
They've created a Capital Area Regional Tolling Authority, or CARTA,
Mhm.
to sort of manage those lanes. So it's definitely a partnership. But it's going to be,
Yeah.
it's going to be challenging.
That is new. I mean, Sacramento doesn't have any of these, right? We don't have any toll lanes.
No. And the public probably doesn't know that they're coming, right? There's one being built now in our neighboring county of YOLO County, right? In West Sacramento, right?
So can you tell me, like, what is that going to look like? Is that going to be like the transponders above the lane? Is there going to be like a buffered lane? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, right. So the Capital Area Regional Tolling Authority is really trying to figure out what it's going to look like right now. So they're doing all these meetings trying to figure out policy on that, right? So is it are these going to be completely separated facilities, or are you going to be able to get in and out of them?
Sure.
Is there going to be, are you going to be required to have a transponder, or are they going to look at your vehicle license plate readers? So we're looking at all that.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out like what do we want, right?
Yeah.
The YOLO 80 project is kind of the project that got everything started, but really, what is the next? What do we want the regional?
What do you want them to
look like? And we want to ensure, from the traveling public standpoint, there's consistency.
Sure.
So they're trying to set some sort of regional policies around that.
Wouldn't the state be in the driver's seat on stuff like that? I mean, they have toll lanes in the Bay Area. Why wouldn't it look exactly like that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, from my understanding, there's a lot of flexibility. So right now, toll facilities are typically built on a project by project basis.
Yeah.
So each one's a little bit different.
Okay.
With different, and there's just different ways of handling those toll lanes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
So you're seeing that a traditional carpool lane, an high occupancy vehicle lane, is viewed negatively as capacity increasing. You're seeing that?
Oh, for sure. So
Wow.
there's a VMT calculator that I believe
The NCST, yeah.
that's the one. Yeah, and so it's very much any lane, HOV lane or otherwise, is considered increasing capacity.
I mean, that's a pretty controversial calculator. I mean, there's an
Yeah,
entire
no,
study
no.
that's debunked it.
Yeah,
It's-
I think it's interesting too because that calculator will give you the same answer regardless of whether I believe it's an express lane or an HOV lane,
Yeah.
or it's interesting, right? And it's not necessarily context sensitive.
Well, I mean, we're talking about something that has like 4 drop down menus, and I've clicked on it.
Yeah,
You know, I've ran it for our project, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like,
right,
it's just like this is not real.
right, right, right.
So, um,
Yeah, it's a very high level tool. You really need to do your own traffic analysis.
I've been attending the California Transportation Commission meetings, and I think there's a working group that is, exploring. I think it's called the rural demand thing, right?
Yep, yep.
It's very much like this is not a one size fits all solution.
Yeah,
I mean, in general, I think you and I have seen level of service change to VMT, and it's kind of gone from it's a lot more of an art, trying to figure out the rate of VMT per land use, calibrating it with household travel surveys, trying to understand how all of that gets weighted in the model.
yeah.
It's
It's interesting. Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's crazy. And it's interesting because like that calculator they use, like you could put that lane anywhere. Like it doesn't matter where you add a lane. It's the same answer.
sure.
And so yeah, I think there's a lot of sensitivity to like if you add a lane in a very rural area because you need like a truck climbing lane or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever it is. Does that really add the capacity, right?
Yeah.
That's showing. So
So we have done a series of studies over the years, right? I came in, I want to say it was 2014. We were looking at, the traditional level of service stuff when we
yeah,
were getting it in this project implemented into the county's general plan circulation element. And I would go in front of the STA board at the time and talk about congestion relief and say that, well, we had numbers that would say congested VMT, right? CVMT, and it was all negative. And I would get feedback that, oh, we're not just looking at congestion. You have to look at total VMT. So we spent, over a year going into a sophisticated travel demand model for our project,
yeah,
working with the land use agencies, et cetera. And we're like, actually, we reduced total VMT too, right? Not a lot, but the number is negative.
yeah,
And all of that's up on our website. It's like, boom, And so I would champion that and say, hey, we reduced total VMT. But then the conversation has changed again, right? And now it's like, oh, what about the induced VMT?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like the indirect VMT. So I'm like, okay, now I've got to go do more work to show that the project is still good, right? After 50 years of, need and project purpose and all that kind of stuff, we're still here justifying that the project is worthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it, man. I'm so glad I'm not a traffic engineer or a transportation planner that has to deal with all of that, right? I mean, yeah, and I think you're right. It's still a little bit, they're still trying to figure it out. Um, it's so interesting. When I'm talking to fair and peers about this stuff, it's like, well, there isn't the research there to support some of these conclusions that I think you want us to come up with, right? Because I want to use some of this VMT funding specifically for active transportation, right? And so it's almost like I have to do the research to support
Yeah.
the hypothesis that funding active transportation actually reduces VMT, right? And in a way that's effective, right? Yeah.
I can see that in an urban area.
Yeah, in an urbanized area, right?
Yeah. I definitely can see that.
Yeah, but then it's like, okay, would that have already occurred? Are you taking credit for something that would have already occurred or has already been assumed?
Sure.
And is it cost effective? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've got a class 1 trail along our entire alignment so that we can reduce VMT with the class 1 trail.
Oh yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's a cool. I really like the class 1 element. I mean, I think it's amazing how how many trails exist, right? But even we had this challenge when I was at Elk Grove. I mean, the Laguna Creek Trail, we built so many different segments of that, right? But there's still a ton of gaps in it, so it's not continuous.
Yeah.
There's all these gaps in it. So, I mean, it's nice. It's nice to have a mile or two trail, but connecting all of them is really important.
Right. Oh yeah.
And so, like, from your standpoint as a regional agency, having an actual trail that's going to go from 34 miles.
Yep.
That's a pretty cool element, right?
Yeah.
Connecting
Yeah.
the cities.
And I've wanted to showcase it more. We wanted to do kind of more of a historic bridge across. What creek was that? I don't want to say Laguna, but
Yeah, I remember that.
but yeah, I mean, we've wanted to make it more of a showcase trail when it's appropriate,
Yeah.
when it makes sense. Across Alder Creek in Folsom, that was kind of cool. We did like a prefabricated, brought it in with a crane, things like that.
Are you still moving forward with that historic bridge? Was that Mice Road?
Meese, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. 'Cause I know it's challenging to reuse those historic bridges.
Yeah, I mean, not only would the steel need to be completely like redone. I mean, it's in bad shape, but we just didn't get the funding application. We didn't get the funding for it, right? So it's not technically gone. It's just a concept.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah, I love those historic bridges. I mean, people love that stuff. So anytime you can incorporate one of those into your project, I mean, it's a cool element, right?
No doubt.
Gets people looking.
No doubt. What's your favorite part of the connector, Kevin? I mean, is it the Elk Grove stuff?
Oh man, yeah. So I mean, that is good, right? I mean, like I did a lot of work. I mean, there's definitely a lot of interest in Elk Grove for the connector, because there's a lot of interest in the Southeast policy area, right, and supporting economic development within that, right,
Where the zoo's going to be.
and where the zoo's going to be, right,
Yeah.
and so yeah, and that the zoo kind of happened after, right, but that was a cool project. But in a lot of ways, I'm really excited about that $25 million raise grant you got, right?
Yeah.
I felt like people don't realize all the work that went into building the collaboration and partnership, right? Getting the city of Rancho Cordova and the county of Sacramento and SACOG to say, this is a need, right? We got to address the safety issue. How do we do that? How can we do that within the current funding, like kind of guidelines and requirements?
Yeah.
And so I know we put some Measure A money towards that, right? It's a match.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I love that stuff.
Good.
I just love it when everyone's trying to work together to accomplish the same goal, trying to fund a project. I mean, you've got a lot of safety issues on that particular segment, right? And I think we worked a compromise out where we agreed to, like, let's reconstruct the existing road in the ultimate location. We'll deal with the widening part later. Let's include the trail. Seemed to make SACOG happy. It addressed the city of Rancho Cordova and specifically the county's concerns regarding just the pavement condition out there. So I love that stuff. Man.
We just got another phone call recently about trying to get it down closer to Kiefer and the pavement condition south of Chrysanthi. And it's like, hey, look, there's no hold up here. We'd love to do more. But no, you're making a great point. I mean, all of these projects have so many people that need to come to the table, work together. And, you and I have kind of talked about this before, but, we've been here for a while. There's a lot of same people working together over many years. And we've kind of come to get to know each other pretty well. And so, successes like that need to be championed and celebrated for sure.
Yeah, I love it. Man.
So I think that we're going to see more. We're excited about the trade corridor enhancement program, and how that's going to boost and supplement that raise grant.
Yeah.
And which is now called Build, right? I don't know what it is now. They're always changing the names.
Changed it already?
I think they changed the name already.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, but you're in a unique position to see so many different agencies.
Yeah.
But I mean, your challenge of trying to get everyone funding. I mean, that is, you're in the thick of that.
Day, right?
You're in the thick of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, STA's role is to be the minister of Measure A, right? But at the same time, we want to ensure that those sales tax dollars are being leveraged with federal and state dollars. And so if you're, SB1 2017 brought a lot of state competitive funding, and then IIJA, Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, through the federal level, brought in a bunch of competitive grants, right?
Mm.
So how can we help our agencies leverage those Measure A funds and get more funding, right? So that part of the job is really exciting.
We call it self-help. Self-help.
Yeah, that's
Right.
exactly it, right? So STA is the self-help county for Sacramento County. We're the only self-help county within the SACOG 6-county region,
Mm.
which is nice. So we do have some funds that we can try to leverage, right?
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. I mean,
Tell us a little bit about this new program for STIP, right? Because you're kind of leading more of a regional effort there.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So SACOG, which is our regional transportation planning agency for Sacramento County and some other surrounding counties, they program STIP dollars. They program those through a competitive process. And so the challenge we have now, I think, is that so much of the funding is competitive that it's almost hard to plan for projects, right? It's almost like, you'd like to move a project forward, right? You've got your, let's say you're in a city and your city manager's asking you, the public's asking for you. And your answer is, well, we'll have to see what we do with the grant, see if we're going to get awarded, right?
Yeah.
And so it provides a lot of, it's hard to plan for that, right? And there's cost to it. You might have to phase a project, right? You might have to we're only moving forward this part because we're not sure we're going to get the grant, which actually increases the cost. And so through this, what we've worked out, I think now is, there's a certain amount of money available for projects in the county. If we all collaborate together on those asks. And so if there's, I think there's about 28 million available for Sacramento County. If we all work together and we submit $28 million of projects to SACOG, and assuming SACOG views those as competitive, then we should get funding for those projects. So it provides that certainty,
Security.
on those funds.
Certainty.
So it's a little bit of funding that allows agencies to move forward their highest priority projects and ensure that they get funded.
Yeah.
Or maybe close a gap on an existing project, right?
That makes sense.
So it's another way of us helping to try to get projects that are likely funded by Measure A moving forward.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
No, that's good. And it's new. I was talking earlier about how Senate Bill 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act, is such a game changer in terms of your ability to plan and strategize, right? About, what the cycles are, what the programs are, what the performance measures are. There's always a little bit of change, right?
Yeah.
The guidelines will change a little bit, but for the most part, the schedule.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not like, surprise, there's a notice of funding opportunity,
Yeah.
Like, you kind of like, oh, you kind of know what's coming, and I want to be in it all the time. Like, that's how I think about it, is like, we should be in every cycle.
Right. I mean, I agree with you. I think, and I like the staff at the CTC. The staff are great to work with. So, and yeah, you're right. You know it's coming. It happens every 2 years, right? And there's three major programs to me. It's trade corridor enhancements, solutions for congested corridors, and local partnership program. And so, I think personally, we sometimes leave some money on the table there, right? I think we need a countywide strategy to capture those dollars, and we should be doing that every.
Can I participate in that, please?
Yeah, I think you do a good job. You're doing a great job doing it on your own, to be honest with you. You do a really good job with that. So, we need a strategy to capture those funds at a countywide level. And it just takes some time and some capacity, staffing wise, right? But I think the part I'm excited about is probably on the solutions for congested corridor side. So we're partnering with PCTPA, Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, to update their plan for the Placer Sacramento Gateway.
Okay.
We're trying to get some grant funds to update that plan, which then makes us eligible for projects along those corridors. That agency has been very successful in getting funds under solutions for congested corridors for projects both in Sacramento and Placer County.
Yeah.
So that's great. I've done that for several cycles. We have not done that on US 50.
No.
So I work with Henry Lee at SacRT to do a joint letter between SacRT and SDA to SACOG saying, hey, we got to do this plan that makes us eligible for those dollars. And they went after a grant. SACOG got the grant. Now they're doing that planning effort.
Yes.
And so now once we get that plan done, we have a license to start getting those funds, right? So I think it's helpful.
I remember when that program came out, because there was a working group, had to have been 15 plus years ago, the Highway 50 working group. But it was really about like Rancho East, Rancho Folsom, El Dorado. And like the Gold Line was one of these projects on White Rock Road before it was the connector, things like that. And you can blow the dust off of it.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, look, all of these agencies, STA, SACOG, the county, etc., like worked on this Highway 50. It was called the Highway 50 Mobility.
I remember
that.
Yeah.
I think it was finished in 2006. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. But I was like, hey, I remember this thing. I sent it over to SACOG and the staff that are working on that, the corridor mobility stuff. I was like, the projects identified here are probably still needed.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of them are. A lot of them. Yeah, that's true.
I feel like we've been fixing 50 forever.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the nice thing is, that we on 50, and this is my personal opinion, but like, we had HOV lanes that went from El Dorado Hills down to like Watt Avenue and just stopped. Didn't make it all the way to like the downtown. So the fact that we're fixing that now is great, right? So that's one that we move forward. But yeah, there's a lot of improvements. I mean, the US 50 corridor is just chock full of transportation. Different.
I live off the 50 corridor.
Oh, myself too, right?
Yeah.
So we've got the American River Parkway, we got the Gold Line, we've got Folsom Boulevard, right? So there's all this stuff on parallel 50, and how can we make the best use of all those different modes, right? So it's a cool plan they're working on.
Man, you seem super busy right now. You got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I have a lot. We could talk about all sorts of stuff.
You're a small agency.
Yeah.
I know what that's like.
Yeah. We have 3 staff. You have what, 2 or 3? 2?
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we only have 3 staff. I was listening to your earlier podcast, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're saying all the same stuff I have, right? I feel like I'm like a startup. It's like it's really wild.
I think it's super efficient, and because the government government efficiency is like the word of the year here, right? How can we be more efficient? Come on.
It's wild. I mean, I think we're allowed to spend 0.75% of our measure funding on administration, and we're definitely doing that. That's for sure. So but yeah,
I get it. But in your office is downtown, so you got a little bit more of a commute to get there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. What are some of your questions about the connector, man? This project like the back of your hand.
Sure.
But
yeah.
I mean, you're here on the Connectors podcast. Anything you want to know about, what we're doing and
what's next, Derek? Like, what's next? What else is coming?
What's next?
What have you not told us about yet? What?
Everything right now. We're just so in the middle of like right-of-way acquisition. Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we're doing acquisitions on Grant Line. We'll have a couple of those that'll be ready in May. But then we're also up on White Rock Road because we have our trail project that we're doing up there. And so I was trying to tell our team that I thought White Rock should have been out to bid this year. I was like, hurry it up.
Yeah, let's get this going.
Let's go. It's a trail. You
Yeah.
can go faster. But it sounds like it might be next year on the trail. But, my goal is always to have like something in construction. I just want to keep going, and
That's a big goal.
so, but you know what that takes. It
takes a lot of work behind the scenes to line up all the funding, man. To try to get and then get the design where it needs to be.
Yeah. What I'm really hoping for, if I look out a couple of years, is I've made this pitch to the county, is I want to go down to Jackson, right? And we're environmentally approved down to Jackson. We're permitted, right? We have a CEQA and NEPA document, and I'm optimistic about our funding round with the CTC for the trade corridor.
Yeah.
And I think once I hear about that, then we can have some much more concrete conversations about, okay, let's keep some momentum and go down to Jackson because we already have the firm under contract. Like I already have a scope to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And so if the trade corridor money comes in, if the SB1 money comes in, I think it frees up some confidence to extend the project further south and go into the local partnership program. in like 2020, what would that be? 8 or yeah, something like that.
Yeah, the next cycle.
It would be
Cycle, yeah.
looking ahead, right?
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
ahead and saying, I mean, I look at this project like this, right? Is that like I think I've got 23 miles that are CEQA and NEPA approved.
Mm.
I want to get those built. I
Yeah.
don't want to go start another environmental document.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, who wants to do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is kind of like my version of public outreach. It's like we're very accessible. We have the social platforms. Yes, people call. Yes, people email. But at a certain point, it's, this is who we are. And if you have a question about our project, we're accessible. You can, this is what we're doing. This is the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
And I was telling the story earlier that public outreach used to be, cookies from Rayleigh's and bottled waters. And now it's like podcasts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like truthfully, we had, how do you have a project outreach meeting along the connector? We had one at the landfill. Like, who wants to go to the landfill
Yeah.
for a public outreach meeting?
Yeah.
We don't want that.
Right.
So this is just modern. This is how we're doing it now. But
Yeah, it's cool, man.
so,
I just want to like say that I think, my opinion of it is transparency builds trust, right?
mhm,
With the both the agencies and the public, right? And so the more of these sort of informal conversations that can be had about your project probably helps everybody understand like here's what's going on. If you want to know what's going on, it's all on the table, right? And so I think it's great. I think
thank you.
that's a good deal.
We started about a year ago with our website, and it's really kind of like the foundation of this kind of effort was we need to have a good modern website, one that has some material on it, but has our messages on it,
Yeah.
and kind of be the source of information. And one of the things that I was experiencing over many years was that like people would ask other agencies about the project, like no, 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 no. Let
Yeah.
me come here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to be the source
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
come here to see our board
Yeah.
meetings, see our board packets, see our reports. And so once we had it sounds so basic, right? But once we had a really good website, then you start to think about, oh, okay, well, how do we layer on some social media and stuff like this? This is all brand new.
I've always felt like you've had a good website. Like you always had a good website, but if you focus more on like what content you're putting out on that website,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, some videos,
yeah,
but definitely, see some of the photos, see
yeah,
see our reports, and
yeah,
find the material, like because a lot of people don't want to dive deeper
yeah,
into the
yeah,
pages,
right.
so making it a little bit more accessible in the very
The
front.
navigation.
Yeah, just stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so as more of this has evolved over time, I think I'm, intuition here, but video is where people are, right? It's not so much of a static post as much as
Yeah,
you and me
yeah, yeah,
talking, having a conversation.
yeah,
We had that one guy come in here. I told you this. It was like, just ask me the question. I'm not scripting anything.
right.
Just ask me the question.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Well, when you like initially asked me to be on this podcast, I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then I'm like, I wonder if I should change. And I'm like, wait a second, let me look. This is a video.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
like, okay,
video.
well,
It's
all
a
right, I'm not
video.
gonna wear my typical attire here.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
wear my hoodie.
yeah.
Uh,
Well,
but
so what's next for us is, I mean, we've got our 3 projects that are top priorities, and we're more in a support role for the city of Elk Grove. It's been like that for a while,
yeah,
and that's what they want.
yeah,
And
sure,
I'm not gonna say anything different about it. It's just like that's what you want, that's what you're
yeah,
gonna get. And so, but we're definitely feeling good about Grantline and the progress going on there is it's so needed. Everyone's calling me like every week. The question I got this week, what's the holdup? I'm like, oh, like we're the holdup.
yeah,
Like, no, no.
right, right.
How about you throw some money at us
Yeah,
to
it's just
see
money. Yeah, that's the answer.
if that's the
What are
answer?
your top three priorities? You said where are they though?
White Rock,
Yeah.
Grantline, and Camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, it's to put the segments on it. It's the second half of White
They're in
Rock
no
Road.
particular order, right?
No particular
Good.
order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
I think if they're racing, I think
Yeah.
Grantline is gonna win the race.
Right.
That's what.
Yeah.
So, for sure.
Let me ask you about. I want to turn this interview around a little bit. If I
Yeah,
can,
let's do it.
uh, like what is up with Grant Line Jackson, that intersection?
Oh my
Like
gosh.
that's like the worst. I like whenever I use the connector or the Grant Line, that is the worst. It takes forever to get through there.
Yeah.
I mean, when are you going to fix that?
When
Right?
am
When are
I
you
gonna
fixing the next
fix that
intersection?
one?
Not that I know it's Caltrans's intersection too, right? With
Yeah,
Jackson
let's
Highway, but
right.
that's
Yeah, so first of all, let's start there, that is a state route,
yeah,
right? That's a
yeah,
Caltrans
yeah,
facility, and, nothing happens there without their blessing. There was talk a few years ago about relinquishing that, and I actually worked with the county at the time to set the relinquishment limits, I wanna say, like, 2/10 of a mile back so that, we had plenty of space
yeah.
to, to do turn pockets, all that
Right,
kinda stuff,
exactly.
right? But it never went forward, like, they never
Yeah,
relinquished it,
yeah.
and so I know there's a lot of um, conditions of approval on development agreements for things like term pockets and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But our project, the connector, which would significantly improve that intersection, it's not in the cards anytime soon unless we get some of these funding from Senate Bill 1, which would free up design funds for south of Chrysanthi, right? So
Okay. So that you talked about that environmental document that covered it all the way down to Jackson.
it did.
Did it include that intersection?
Yes,
Okay, good.
it did. Yeah, and passed it. Uh,
I mean, very selfishly thinking about like when I've driven that road and the congestion, right?
yeah,
But that one's a problem. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we purchased some mitigation land at the corner there, so I
Yeah.
think out of the 4 quadrants, one of them will be somewhat easy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's for sure. How much mitigation do you think land have you actually purchased?
Well, I think in terms of acreage,
I
um,
know it's hundreds of acres, but
yeah,
it's
well
400 or
so I think we have, at least 300 that was purchased, but 150 of it is now under the ownership of the conservation agency. We still own fee title on about 160,
okay.
right? So, that's I think the 2000 when back in 2019 was our first purchase.
Okay.
We did a mitigation fee agreement for a property called the Gill Ranch.
Yeah.
It was a little further off alignment,
Yeah.
which some people liked, some people didn't like. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service loved it,
Yeah.
because it was a
Yeah.
big part of a Gill Ranch complex out there. Um, but in terms of growth inducement mitigation, it was not considered growth inducement because it was too far away. So it was great habitat for
Yeah.
what they were trying to do,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
but it was
Yeah.
just too far off alignment.
So when you say growth inducement, you mean like preserving lands adjacent to the connector to ensure they're not being developed?
Correct. And
Yeah.
specifically, like immediately adjacent to the urban services boundary so that the urban services boundary doesn't change.
Right.
Right. So that's what that goal
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
to kind of lock that up to make sure that it's the USB becomes
Gotcha.
firm, right?
So that 160 acres, is that the one you purchased?
Yeah,
Does that fit the bill or?
it does.
Yeah.
Now, because some people are even more stringent and
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, but that's not in the path of development. And I'm thinking, okay, hold on. There's only so much I can do here, right?
Yeah.
And so if
Hmm.
um so there are some
I
organizations
get it. I know, I get it. I get it. Like they probably want you to acquire properties within the urban services boundary, not to
and within
necessarily
the path of development.
and within the path of development. So
Right.
you're basically interesting. Wow. Okay.
Right.
I never thought about that.
Kevin, you run Sacramento County Transportation Authority and you administer Measure A, which is a half cent sales tax for transportation. How is sales tax revenue looking?
Yeah. So I think sales tax revenue, right? Right now, we get both sales tax revenue and impact fees about 180 million a year, which is amazing, right?
That's great.
A lot of people don't realize how much money that is generated, nor that it goes out to all these agencies and they're using it, right? And and just a little bit of background on it, like since Measure A started. This is the renewal, of course, started in '09. Measure A revenues have doubled,
Wow.
which is awesome. Construction costs have tripled. It's like
Oh,
good
great.
news, bad news, right?
Yeah.
So it's good and it's bad, right? And then as far as revenue, we've always keeps going up, right? Which is great. And somewhat we're fairly insulated in Sacramento. from a lot of the, recessions, right? So typically we don't see big dips. We see things go flat, because we're kind of a government town, if you will. That
That's why
tends
I
to,
describe it. I
yeah,
describe it as a government
definitely
town.
helps.
Uh,
The challenges we're seeing right now is that so initially, cost, everything was going up, right? Yeah, this inflation, right? So thinking, oh well, all the costs go up, that means more tax revenue, right? Because if things cost more, then people are paying more, then there's more revenue. But that's not really what's happening.
hmm.
And so what's happening is there are a lot of like goods and services that are not taxable. Services are generally not taxable, and certain goods, like just if you go to the grocery store, you're not taxed, right? Um, and so what we're seeing is that's sort of the costs have increased, right? The amount of discretionary funding or monies that a family has, right, is getting reduced, and those are really the taxable dollar.
Oh
That's
my
what happens,
gosh.
right?
Wow.
So,
This is
so you're
interesting.
seeing this inflationary effect that's squeezing out the discretionary funding that a family might have,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
then starting to reduce
Mhm.
actual sales tax revenue, and so we anticipate revenues being fairly flat. And not growing. The other challenge I think you're going to have is what happens with all these tariffs, right? And so are
Mm.
these tariffs going to further increase costs on not taxable goods and services? And then there's going to be even less discretionary funding that can be spent on things that are taxable. So the concern is, are we going to see some sort of correction in our tax in our revenues?
Yeah.
And usually, I mean, taxes are one of I mean, sales taxes are a very stable source of revenue. So we really never seen a big change, but I am very interested to see what's going to happen with all these tariffs, right?
Man, that is fascinating. Yeah. I mean, nobody's crystal ball is crystal clear, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, what an interesting time.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating point about the discretionary spending. I certainly have felt that in my
Oh
family,
yeah.
there's no
It's
doubt.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Uh,
And so like, we saw a huge surge in taxable spending during the pandemic. So everybody was at home, they had money coming in, right? And they had also made some changes really to how taxes apply when you're doing online shopping, which actually helped us out.
yeah.
So we saw a big bump, but now we'll have to see what happens.
Was there a drop in gas tax during that time?
Yeah, I don't there probably was, but maybe the correction in how they dealt with, online shopping
Yeah.
address that? I don't
Hmm.
know.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Well, I mean, Measure has been a huge boost to the Connector project. You know that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's the lifeblood for us, and so I really appreciate you being here, talking to me, talking to our audience.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
this is transportation, man. So
Yeah,
there'll be something more to talk about in a few months because it's always changing and
absolutely.
dynamic. And I know there's you know, more to come. And I really appreciate how much work that you've put into helping this project and being a good steward of the taxpayer dollars. And
Mm,
thanks for coming in.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, Derek.
All right.